folks, it's the Bar Down Breakdown. The playoffs are upon us. Well, kind of course. We've got that little North Division layover with the rest of the league. But today we're going to attempt to demystify, in my opinion, the most mystifying position in sports. Because goaltending is just a crazy kind of thing. And if you're going to get into the mind of a goaltender, I think we have to talk to a goaltender. So we've got with us our resident goaltending expert, Jamie Noodles McLennan. And today we're going to try and demystify things. Noodles, I'm going to ask you off the top, are the rumors true? Are goalies always the most eccentric person in the dressing room? And do you have any personal quirks that you want to admit to?
Yes, I will admit to it that goaltenders, I don't want to say, we're different. I just want to say we're unique. And I love that. And quirks, there were too many to list. To be honest, what is more important is I was a guy who was very routine orientated. So from the outside, people thought that guy, he's not all there, or he's too superstitious. But I just like to do the same thing all the time, repetition, to get ready for games, I ate at the same time, I drove to the rink the same way. It was kind of just like I say, I think it was more superstition, but I just called it routine. So are we a little bit out there? Are we a little bit of the Space Cadets? Absolutely. But I think that's what makes us special. Just like quarterbacks, just like pitchers, goaltenders are a little bit out there, but they're the pulse of the team.
Yeah, I made sure not to say weird. I said eccentric. And you've got to be a little bit out there, right? If you're going to stand in front of a frozen rubber puck coming at you at 100 clicks an hour every once in a while. But goaltending is a different position altogether, and even the way these guys develop is really differently than any other player on the ice. This year we saw someone like Carter Hart, who I'm sure is going to have a great career, kind of have a little bit of a struggle year, where someone like Jack Campbell, who's just about to be 30, had a really great year. So what can you say about how different it is for goalies to develop compared to players?
Well, you have two great examples there where Carter Hart it seemed to be this can't-miss prospect. And, in Philadelphia, they wanted to rush him into the net. And a lot of times goaltenders, it takes time to settle into that craft. And not just physically, but mentally, to be able to handle the duress night in and night out. So, Carter Hart has a real good rookie campaign, and then all of a sudden he hits the ditch in his second season. The team didn't help in front of him. Whereas a guy like Jack Campbell, who was a really high draft pick, and he kind of bounced around, and it took him a while to find the confidence and really develop into a very good goaltender. The other thing I'll say, you're only as good as the team in front of you, and you need opportunity. So Jack Campbell, as I just mentioned, he bounced around, and in 2015, I believe, he was in the East Coast League. So he seemed miles away from the National Hockey League. All of a sudden, he's going to be the starting goaltender for the Toronto Maple Leafs heading into the playoffs. So at 29 years old, we're seeing goaltenders get basically better with age, like a fine wine. And I would argue that from 18 to 25, in those developmental years, it takes time for a goaltender to develop that stability. There's outliers. Vasilevsky was one of them. I think Connor Hellebuck would be one of them. Jonathan Quick got good at 25 years old. So it's interesting to just track everyone's individual career. But ultimately, I think the wheelhouse of a real mature goaltender is past 25 years old. Even I'm thinking of recency bias, a guy like Jordan Binnington, who came out of nowhere and all of a sudden wins the Stanley Cup and was brilliant for the St. Louis Blues. He didn't do it as a 21-year-old. He bounced around and at one point was the 5th goaltender in St. Louis's system. And at 25, 26, now you're seeing a star player. So it does take time for goaltenders to arrive, because a lot of it, yes, it's physical, it's talent, but it's also mental and being able to handle that mental duress. And you see, as guys get more mature mentally, their game rounds into a lot more consistently.
Absolutely. So being a goaltender is already so different than anything else you see in hockey. So how much does that intensify when playoffs come around? And what really separates a great goalie in the playoffs from a goalie who might have a poor playoffs? Because everybody knows you really need solid goaltending to be able to win a playoff round and especially win a Stanley Cup.
And that's exactly what it is. You need great goaltending, but you ask me what separates? It's the big save at the right time, because you're going to allow goals. You may have an off night, but it's how you respond and how you give your team that particular night a chance to win. Because there might be a crazy night where you have to win 7-6. But when the game is 6-6, you better make that big save so that your team has an opportunity to score that 7th goal. I've played with some of the best goaltenders that would be called clutch goaltenders, where they had playoff success because they knew when the chips were down, they were at their best. And off the top of my head, a guy like Grant Fear, who's known as, they call him one of the best money goaltenders or clutch goaltenders out there, he had that clutch gene. In Edmonton, yes, they had a great team in front of him, but they always needed that big save at the right time, and Grant delivered. So, those are like kind of examples of, you may have maybe an off night here or there, but it all comes back to what you can give that particular night to help your team win. That clutch save, the clutch play, and some goaltenders have it, some goaltenders don't, and that's why they don't have success in the playoffs.
Yeah, I guess it all does come down to how well you can perform under pressure. And you just mentioned Binnington, but we've seen that a little bit in these last few years and in hockey's history. You mentioned Binnington doing it. We saw Hudobin kind of do it for the Dallas Stars last year, get them all the way to the Stanley Cup finals. Is there any goalies in this postseason that you look at and you think, you know what, I could really see him getting hot and stealing a playoff round, maybe even stealing a Stanley Cup for his team?
Well, I mean, you just pointed to a guy like Jack Campbell who has 0 starts in the playoffs. So that's a guy that, he's got a good team in front of him, but he has to deliver at critical times. So does he get hot? Does he get on a roll? I look at in Carolina, what are they going to do with Mrazek or Nedeljkovic? Those are 2 goaltenders that, are playing behind a great team. But, are they going to be able to grab it and run with it? I look at the list of all goaltenders, especially even a guy like Mike Smith in Edmonton. He's 39 years old. And the fortunes of guys like McDavid and Draisaitl, who are kind of in the prime of their careers and just dominating the league, are going to be on a guy who's, been brilliant all season long. But, is he going to be able to continue to bring it? So there's so much different pressure depending on which organization you're with. Samsonov or Vanacek in Washington, are they going to be able to get it done? Tristan Jarry in Pittsburgh, who really has been handed the keys to the car this year because they traded Matt Murray in the offseason. There's so many different pressure situations for all these organizations. I'll go one more. Philip Grubauer in Colorado, who's been brilliant this season. He plays behind a great team that just won the President's Trophy. But has he had success in the playoffs? Not the way he's wanted to. He got handed the keys to the car in Washington. He hit the ditch. Holtby went and won the Stanley Cup. Last year, he had an opportunity, but he got injured. You can't fault him for that. So now he's got an opportunity to do something special. So everyone's going to have an opportunity to do it. You're going to have to write your own path. And there's some goaltenders that I just pointed out that could have real nice runs.